Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've sent us some really interesting source material today.
Yeah, it takes us into the world of trees, but maybe not in the way you'd expect.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a bit of a twist. We're looking at these excerpts discussing, well, girdling trees and veteranizing.
Yeah, and the sources feature this really great conversation. It's between two people, Kesser and Steen, from a nature and innovation class,
Right.
and this other person they called the man in the green shirt.
And what really jumps out, I think, is how this whole conversation shifts the focus,
Totally. It moves away from just thinking about forests for timber, like the best wood for furniture,
Mhm.
and towards actively creating habitat, like on purpose.
Yeah, deliberately. So our mission here is to kind of unpack that. We want to step into that conversation Kesser and Steen are having.
They're grappling with this question, aren't they? Like, why on earth would someone intentionally damage a tree or even
Yeah.
kill it?
Right. And the material shows how these methods, which sound kind of destructive, are actually really important tools for, well, building a healthier ecosystem.
It's all about deliberate intervention, using techniques like you mentioned, girdling and veteranizing.
Specifically for biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly. Insects, bats. The sources really focus on that, moving beyond just optimizing trees for, building materials.
Okay, so let's get into that conversation then. The sources set the scene. Kesser and Steen, they're in this class, Nature and Innovation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're chatting with the man in the green shirt. Sounds like maybe after some spring sales event, they finally have a chance to talk properly.
And Kesser and Steen, they start off thinking about plant care in a pretty standard way, right?
Yeah, like trees and bushes mostly look after themselves. Maybe you prune them a bit, shape them up.
And that's the cue for the man in the green shirt. He jumps in with this totally different idea of shaping.
Not shaping for looks or for stray timber.
No, not at all. It's shaping for nature.
Okay, and the first surprising technique is girdling. Also called ringing, apparently.
Yeah, Kesser and Steen must have been a bit like, what's that?
So what is girdling, based on what we read?
Well, basically, you take a strip of bark off all the way around the trunk.
Okay.
The sources say, like, a ring, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters wide, and you have to go deep enough.
Deep enough to get through.
Right, you have to completely cut through that living layer just under the bark, the cambium.
The cambium layer. I remember that from biology.
Yeah.
That's vital, isn't it? For growth and nutrients.
Exactly. It's the transport system. So if you cut that all the way around, well, you stop the flow.
The flow between the roots and the leaves.
Precisely. So the tree, it basically dies. But, and this is the key bit, it dies while it's still standing up.
So it dries out naturally, still rooted in the ground.
Yeah, before you even think about cutting it down.
Killing it slowly while it stands. That feels really weird if you're thinking about healthy trees.
It does sound counterintuitive.
The sources mentioned doing this maybe, a year or two before felling? Or even before winter.
Right, specifically to get wood that's drier. Drier than if you just cut down a green tree full of sap in spring.
So it's a controlled way to manage the end of its life.
Yeah.
Changes the wood, but crucially.
It leaves that dead tree standing.
And that's the point, isn't it? That standing dead structure for habitat.
Yes. Which leads perfectly into the second concept Kesser and Steen are learning about. Veteranizing.
Veteranizing. Okay, so the sources describe this as intentionally causing big old trees to sort of weaken and die slowly.
Yeah, think of it like nature care, but focused on managing decay.
Yeah.
Over a much longer time than, say, typical logging would allow.
Why? I mean, why do we need to manage decay?
Well, because many forests, they've been managed for timber for so long, generations, really.
Okay.
And we've ended up with this real lack of a specific thing. Standing deadwood.
Yeah.
And lots of species absolutely rely on it.
Ah, I see. So veteranizing is a way to kind of kickstart the creation of that missing habitat, that standing deadwood.
You got it. It's about accelerating that natural process.
How do they actually do that?
It involves, different ways to gradually weaken the tree. Things that mimic what might happen naturally over decades.
Like storms or disease or something.
Exactly. Things like that. The sources mention using chainsaws or axes, just from the ground. Simple stuff.
Okay.
But also some more dramatic methods, almost theatrical.
Dramatic? Like what?
Well, they talk about using explosives to blast a tree.
Whoa, really? Explosives?
Yeah. Or using pulling forces to actually split the trunk partway up.
Dynamite to mimic a lightning strike. Now that is fascinating.
Isn't it? And the sources are really clear this isn't about getting timber.
No, it explicitly says it's to create life for small animals, not for the sawmill.
It's a complete mind shift, a total change in purpose.
What's really interesting is this deliberate, acceptance of damage,
Yes.
decay.
Right. What we normally see as an imperfection, maybe rot or a split.
That's actually the goal here, the
Yeah.
positive outcome for biodiversity.
Precisely. The sources even mention almost like artistic touches, creating artificial scrapes on the bark or making cuts lengthwise.
For bats?
Yeah, specifically to make cavities that bats might use.
So forget the forestry goal of a perfect, straight, knot-free trunk.
Completely the opposite.
The goal here is wounds, decay, hollows, death, essentially, because those things create the homes.
Homes for insects to burrow in, fungi to grow, birds to nest.
Bats to roost. You're managing the tree's decline to help everything else that lives on that decline.
Exactly. And that conversation, the one between Kesser, Steen, and the man in the green shirt, it just highlights this so well.
Yeah, they're learning these techniques that, from one angle look like you're harming the tree.
But from the ecosystem's perspective, you're actually supporting it. You're creating vital structure.
So let's just recap then. Stepping through these sources, it's clear that managing trees isn't just about growing them for us, for timber or furniture.
Right. It's also about understanding that death, decay, these imperfect structures, they're absolutely essential, part of a healthy cycle for all sorts of life.
So girdling, that lets a tree die and dry out standing up, creates a specific kind of deadwood.
Mm-hmm. And veteranizing actively mimics natural damage lightning, slow decay, making sure that crucial standing deadwood habitat is actually there.
Addressing a gap, maybe, left by centuries of traditional forestry.
That seems to be the idea. And these methods, the ones Kesser and Steen are learning about from the man in the green shirt.
They show this really conscious shift, don't they? Away from just optimizing for wood.
And towards actively managing the environment for insects, for bats, for the whole web of life.
It really hammers home that what looks like damage from one point of view,
like maximizing timber yield,
is actually creating essential resources from nature's perspective.
Yeah.
Homes, food sources.
Yeah, vital stuff.
So this does leave us with a question, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to think about. If optimizing nature for just one thing, like growing that perfect tree for timber, can accidentally remove vital elements needed by other species, what other things that seem, imperfect or messy or chaotic in an ecosystem, what other processes like that might actually be completely indispensable for biodiversity to really thrive?
That's a great question. Something to mull over next time you're out and maybe see a dying tree or a damaged one. It might be doing more than you think.